Waves roll against the shore, soft yet eternal, carrying secrets older than memory itself. The night sky hangs above, stars trembling like lanterns over an endless dark sea. You hear the ocean breathe, its rhythm steady, as if the world's heart beats beneath the waves. This is where our story begins, in the realm of Poseidon, lord of tides and keeper of storms. He is the god of shifting waters, both calm harbor and raging tempest, feared and revered alike. His trident is not just a weapon, but a symbol of his dominion over seas, rivers, and hidden depths. Mortals whisper his name in prayer, asking for gentle winds or mercy from towering waves. Yet Poseidon is restless, wild, a force that resists bonds, forever seeking his own path. The sea mirrors his spirit, vast, untamed, unpredictable, and free from chains or rules. But soon, even a god must face a choice, where freedom collides with responsibility and duty. The binding oath awaits him, an ancient promise that no tide can wash away or erase. And tonight, we dive into that story, where gods walk close to men, and the sea itself speaks. The sea stretches endless, a horizon where sky and water meet in silver light. Waves rise and fall, each crest carrying whispers of forgotten gods and lost kingdoms. In this vast expanse, Poseidon reigns, a sovereign whose throne is the deep abyss below. He is not bound to marble halls or golden crowns, for his crown is the foam of waves. His palace is carved from coral and pearl, hidden in trenches where sunlight never lingers. Every ripple, every tide, answers to his will, as if the ocean itself is his living voice. Sailors know him as the one who commands storms, sudden and fierce, yet strangely just. They call his name when the winds howl, offering prayers for mercy beneath darkened skies. And when the sea lies calm, they thank him quietly, leaving gifts upon the shore. Poseidon is both feared and adored, for he holds the balance of peril and protection. His trident gleams, three-pronged and ancient, forged with power to stir the deepest waters. It is not only a weapon, but a key, unlocking secrets that mortals will never truly grasp. He walks the seabed as easily as a man upon earth, his footsteps stirring schools of fish. Creatures of the deep bow in silence, from great whales to the smallest hidden crabs. Even dolphins leap higher when his presence is near, as if celebrating their sovereign. But Poseidon is more than power and storm. He is restless spirit, never still, never silent. He longs to roam, to feel waves crash against cliffs, to wander shores where mortals dwell. He listens to their songs and stories, woven with hope and fear, tangled with longing. At times, he envies their fragile courage, facing oceans with nothing but wooden ships. Mortals live brief lives, yet their hearts burn bright, daring the sea as if it were theirs. Poseidon respects this defiance, though he never forgets that he is eternal. They are not. For centuries, he has guarded the boundary between land and water, god and mortal. Sometimes gentle, guiding sailors home with starlit currents and friendly winds. Sometimes stern, reminding them that the sea is no servant, but a realm of its own. Legends tell of his laughter echoing like thunder when storms roll across the horizon. Others say his sorrow can be heard in the weeping of the tide upon lonely rocks. Poseidon carries both joy and grief. His heart is changeable as the waters he commands. He remembers ancient battles, when gods shaped the world and carved mountains and seas. He remembers the chains of duty placed upon him, though he has always craved freedom. The ocean reflects his spirit, boundless and shifting, never satisfied with stillness. Mortals think of him as distant, unreachable. But Poseidon is closer than they believe. Each drop of rain, each tide that tugs at the shore, is a touch of his hand unseen. He is present in storms that shake the masts and in calm waters that cradle tiny boats. The fisherman's nets, heavy with silver fish, are his unspoken blessing upon their labor. The safe return of children from a voyage is a gift wrapped in salt and foam. Yet he asks for nothing in return, only respect for the sea that is both gift and trial. For Poseidon knows the ocean cannot be owned, not by gods, not by kings, not by mortals. It is eternal, like himself, flowing between ages, carrying stories beyond reckoning. And so he watches, restless yet steady, guardian of mysteries too deep for mortal sight. The sea is his kingdom, his mirror, his eternal companion, never ending, never still. Poseidon stands at its heart, god of tides, lord of storms, master of every hidden depth. And though he reigns in power, his true nature is a question the waves whisper still. High above the mortal world, clouds gathered around the shining peaks of Mount Olympus. The halls of the gods gleamed with marble pillars and golden light that never dimmed. Here, the immortals assembled, their voices like thunder, their laughter like lightning. At the head of the council sat Zeus, the ruler of sky and storm, radiant in command. His gaze swept the room, carrying both kindness and authority, a balance few could hold. Beside him sat Hera, regal and wise, her eyes steady as she measured each word spoken. Athena leaned forward, calm and thoughtful, her wisdom guiding her quiet presence. Apollo's lyre rested in his hands, strings humming softly as if echoing hidden truths. Artemis stood tall, her bow at her side, her gaze sharp as moonlight over dark forests. Hermes flitted between shadows, restless, quick-footed, always ready with a clever remark. And there was Poseidon, towering, his sea-blue cloak shifting like restless waves. Though among family, he felt apart. A tide pulled between freedom and command. Zeus rose and raised his hand, and silence spread like calm before a coming storm. "Brothers and sisters," he declared, his voice filling every corner of Olympus. "The age of mortals grows bold. Their voices reach us in temples and winds alike. They call upon us for justice, for safety, for order when chaos threatens their lives. We must answer not as scattered flames, but as a single fire burning steady. Each of us will swear an oath, binding us to harmony between our realms and theirs." A murmur swept the council, soft like wind moving through leaves in summer. Athena nodded in agreement, seeing wisdom in promises that brought structure to power. Apollo smiled faintly, for his songs would praise gods who honored the bonds of order. Hera spoke with clarity, affirming that a promise would protect both divine and mortal. But Poseidon frowned, his brow heavy, as if a storm brewed within his chest. He had lived free as the sea, tides moving by no law but their own. To bind himself with oaths felt like chains sinking into the deep, cold waters. Zeus turned his eyes upon his brother, calm yet firm as he asked, "Poseidon, will you not join us in this vow to hold balance between heaven, sea, and earth?" Poseidon's voice rolled low, like waves against cliffs, steady but edged with resistance. Why should a god who is eternal swear to rules shaped by fleeting mortals? My seas bow to no law but their tides, and I bow to no chain of words. The council stirred uneasily, gods exchanging glances, some curious, some disapproving. Hermes chuckled lightly, teasing, "Even the sea must answer to the moon, brother." But Poseidon's eyes flashed, neither in anger nor jest, but in defiance of being bound. Zeus did not raise his voice, yet power laced each syllable as he replied. "Freedom without order is storm without end, waves that drown what they should protect. The oath is not a chain, but a bridge, promise freely chosen, not forced. The words lingered like mist over water, and even Poseidon could not dismiss them. He remained silent, his trident resting against his shoulder, gleaming like captured lightning. The council waited, the air heavy with expectation, as thunder rolled in the distance. In that moment, Poseidon felt torn between loyalty to his kin and loyalty to himself. The sea within him raged, calling for freedom, yet also whispering of duty long denied. For now, he gave no answer, leaving silence to speak louder than any vow. And so the council adjourned. Decisions made, but one god's heart left unsettled. As Poseidon turned from Olympus, the sound of waves echoed faintly in the halls. A promise had been placed before him, yet the choice remained his alone to make. Night descended softly over the endless sea, casting silver light upon the restless waves. The moon rose slow and bright, its reflection stretching like a path across the dark waters. Far from Olympus and its golden halls, Poseidon walked alone along a silent, rocky shore. Each step left no trace, as if the sand itself knew to erase the presence of a god. The wind carried salt and memory, the kind that clings to the soul long after the storm. He listened to the ocean's voice, a language older than mountains, older than time itself. It spoke not with words, but with rhythm, a pulse of tides, a sigh of eternal movement. Poseidon closed his eyes and let the waves speak, each swell whispering a truth he knew. "You are not just the sea's master," they murmured. "You are its guardian, its very heart." But the memory of the council still weighed on him, heavy as anchors in the depths. The thought of an oath clashed with his spirit, born wild and free beneath the open sky. He had never needed promises to know his purpose. The sea was his vow, his identity. Yet something in Zeus's words echoed deeper than he wished to admit, like a current below. Was freedom still freedom if it left those who depended on him adrift in fear? He thought of sailors whispering prayers beneath black clouds, their lives at the mercy of tides. He remembered fishermen who had named their children after him, in hope, not in fear. The mortals trusted him, even when he offered them storms, because they believed he cared. Did he care? Or did he simply act as the sea did, without thought, without choice? Poseidon's gaze drifted toward the horizon, where night met water in seamless infinity. The waves rolled in steady patterns, answering no master but the moon's distant pull. And yet, even the moon was bound, not chained, but committed to its eternal dance. Was that not a kind of oath, too, written not in words, but in the fabric of the cosmos? He walked closer to the tide, letting water rise around his ankles, cool and grounding. The sea hummed with life beneath the surface. Coral breathing, fish darting, currents swirling. All of it relied on balance, an invisible agreement older than any god's decree. "Perhaps an oath is not a prison," Poseidon whispered, though no one but the waves heard. "Perhaps it is a reminder that even power must serve something greater than itself." The ocean answered with a swell that kissed the shore gently, as if in agreement. He thought then of his brothers and sisters on Olympus, bound by their roles and choices. Zeus did not command the sky out of vanity. Hera did not guard oaths for power alone. Each god carried a burden, a purpose, and in that burden lay their meaning. Poseidon's burden was the sea, vast, unpredictable, vital, and all who lived by it. And perhaps, he realized, his resistance was not defiance, but fear of what change might bring. He feared losing himself, becoming less wild, less free, if he swore to anything at all. But as he watched the tide wash and retreat, unchanged and yet forever shifting, he understood. Change did not weaken the sea. It defined it. Motion was its essence, its eternal truth. And so it must be with him. Even Adasa, God who ruled chaos, could choose to shape its flow. The waves whispered again, softer now, like a lullaby to a restless heart. "You are not the storm," they seemed to say. "You are the calm that follows." Poseidon turned his gaze from the horizon to the shore, where human fires flickered faintly. In those small flames was the reason for all his storms and calms, his wrath and mercy. They did not need a god of chaos. They needed a god who listened and remembered. The sea called to him once more, endless and patient, waiting for his choice. And as he stood there beneath the moon's watchful eye, Poseidon felt the tide within shift. The binding oath still troubled him, yet for the first time, it no longer felt impossible. It felt inevitable, as natural as the pull of the moon, as constant as the breath of the sea. Morning broke with golden light spilling across the horizon, painting the waves in fire and gold. Poseidon stood by the shore, silent, his gaze lost in the endless rhythm of the tide. The council's decree still lingered in his thoughts, heavy as the weight of an unseen anchor. His heart wrestled with a choice, one that threatened the freedom he valued above all. The crash of waves echoed his turmoil, restless as though the sea itself mirrored his spirit. From behind him came the sound of quick steps, light as the breeze yet sharp as song. Hermes appeared, cloak fluttering, sandals gleaming with wings, his eyes bright with mischief. "Brother of the sea," Hermes called, "you brood like storm clouds, yet dawn is clear today." Poseidon did not answer at once, his voice slow, rolling like thunder deep beneath the waves. "I think of chains, Hermes, chains of words that bind gods to laws they did not choose." Hermes laughed, tilting his head, his tone both teasing and curious, playful yet piercing. "Chains? An oath is not always a chain. Sometimes it is a compass pointing true north." Poseidon turned, his eyes storm bright, his trident resting heavy against his broad shoulder. "Freedom is my compass. The sea moves as it wills. Should a god abandon such nature?" Hermes stepped closer, his smile softening though the light of jest never left his eyes. "Even the sea, mighty as it is, answers to the moon. Freedom dances with duty." The words stirred something in Poseidon, though he masked it with silence and stone. Hermes pressed on, weaving thoughts like currents, never still, never predictable. Without order, freedom devours itself. Without freedom, order suffocates. Balance is the way. Poseidon's gaze drifted to the horizon, waves tumbling like thoughts that refused to rest. He recalled mortals who braved storms, who prayed not for chains, but for guidance. "Mortals depend on us," Hermes added, softer now, his tone touched with rare sincerity. "They do not ask that we surrender ourselves, only that we remember them in our power." The sea stirred gently at his feet, the tide rising as if listening to the god's words. Poseidon clenched his trident, its points glimmering with the reflection of the climbing sun. "I am no stranger to duty," he admitted, his voice low, touched with reluctant truth. "I have guided sailors home, lifted storms, and granted harvests from the deep. But to swear, to bind myself, what if it strips away the wildness that makes me whole?" Hermes placed a hand upon his arm, light as wind, firm as faith in his own words. "Brother, the wildness of the sea is not lost when it reaches shore. It becomes life. Would you call the tide less free because it keeps the rhythm that mortals trust?" The question hung in the salt air, lingering like the taste of brine upon the tongue. Poseidon said nothing, but within his chest the storm shifted, uncertain yet stirred. Hermes stepped back, his sandals brushing sand, his smile returning with playful ease. "You need not answer today," he said, voice lilting, half in jest, half in truth. "The sea will tell you, as it always does, when it is time to decide." With that, Hermes turned, vanishing in a shimmer of light, swift as the morning breeze. Poseidon stood alone once more, yet less alone than before. His thoughts no longer silent. The tide washed around his feet, pulling and returning, a rhythm ancient and unbroken. Perhaps he thought freedom and oath were not enemies, but currents of the same sea. And with that, he turned back to the waves, the storm within him whispering of change. The sun climbed high, and the sea shimmered bright. Yet Poseidon's heart carried a shadow of thought. He wandered along the cliffs, each step echoing like a drumbeat against the roar of the waves. Birds circled above, their cries sharp, as though urging him toward a truth he tried to escape. At the cliff's edge, he stopped, gazing at the wide expanse of sea stretching without end. The horizon called to him, promising freedom, yet whispering of duties he could not ignore. From the deep came a familiar presence, gentle yet vast, the voice of Amphitrite, his queen. She rose from the surf, radiant, crowned with coral, eyes calm as still waters after storm. "Why do you walk alone, my lord of the sea, when the waves ache with your silence?" she asked. Poseidon turned, his gaze softening at the sight of her, yet his words came heavy with doubt. "They ask for an oath, Amphitrite, a vow to bind my will, as if the sea could be caged." Her laughter rang like shells chiming, light, not mocking, but filled with patient wisdom. "The sea is not caged, even by its tides. Its strength is born from rhythm, not from chaos." He frowned, the storm within him swirling, yet her calm presence eased the edges of his unrest. "Would you see me sworn, queen of the deep? Would you have me yield to chains of law?" She stepped closer, the foam of waves trailing her gown, her voice steady as the ocean floor. "I would see you whole, not torn between pride and purpose. An oath does not erase you. The sea gives, the sea takes. It remains itself. So will you, with or without words." Poseidon listened, silence stretching between them like a gulf bridged only by trust. He thought of their son, Triton, a child born of tide and God, learning to balance both worlds. "What of Triton?" Poseidon asked softly. "Shall he inherit a sea unbound or guided?" Amphitrite's eyes gleamed, carrying both love and truth, her answer as steady as the tide. "He shall inherit what you teach him, not through storms, but through the choices you make." The words pierced him deeper than tridents, for they spoke not of chains, but of legacy. His grip tightened on his staff, the sea answering in restless churns, waves foaming white. "I fear losing myself," he admitted, the confession torn from depths he seldom revealed. "You will not lose yourself," Amphitrite whispered. "You will find the part of you that endures." A gull cried overhead, the sound sharp, cutting the air, as if sealing her gentle truth. Poseidon's gaze lingered on her face, then drifted once more to the horizon's boundless line. He felt the old pull of freedom, vast and untamed, yet mingled now with duty's voice. The sea rolled endlessly, its rhythm both wild and ordered, chaos wrapped in eternal balance. Amphitrite reached for his hand, cool as tide, steady as stone, anchoring him without force. "The oath will not bind you," she said. "It will remind you. You are more than a storm." Her words settled into him, like silt sinking, slow yet certain, shaping what lay beneath. Poseidon stood still, the storm within quieter, though not gone, shifting into something new. In Amphitrite's presence, the choice no longer seemed a chain, but a current toward meaning.
By the power of the sea,
The waves lapped at their feet, as if the sea itself approved of the truth spoken that day. And though he did not yet decide, Poseidon knew the tide within him had already begun to turn. The day grew long, and clouds gathered on the horizon, veiling the sun in silver haze. Poseidon wandered from the cliffs to the quiet bay, where the water lay calm and clear. The air was thick with salt and silence, broken only by the splash of distant dolphins. Here, he found solace often, far from the noise of Olympus and its endless arguments. Yet today, the bay carried a different weight, as though it too waited for his decision. Upon the rocks sat a figure, radiant and wise, Athena, goddess of wisdom and warcraft. Her gray eyes studied the sea with calm precision, as if she measured its every motion. Poseidon paused, his steps deliberate, knowing their history was tangled and unkind. Athena turned, her voice steady, her tone cool but not without a thread of care. "You walk heavy, uncle. The sea reflects it, restless though no storm is near." Poseidon gripped his trident, his gaze steady, his words slow as rolling thunder. "They press me for an oath, child of wisdom, a vow that feels like chains to my spirit." Athena rose, her presence calm as marble, yet fierce as flame hidden within stone. Chains? No. Words spoken with purpose are not shackles, but anchors against drifting. Her gaze pierced him, yet not in scorn. It carried weight, like the stillness before dawn. "Would you have the sea wander aimless, unbound, serving nothing but its own hunger?" Poseidon bristled, the pride in him rising, the storm in his heart refusing quiet. The sea is freedom itself. It bends to no law. It is vast because it is unbroken. Athena stepped closer, her eyes unflinching, her voice low and deliberate in reply. "Even freedom, uncle, demands a frame. Without it, the sea swallows, never nourishes." She gestured to the bay, its waters calm, a mirror reflecting both sky and God alike. Here the sea feeds life, because it is held, shaped, guided by the land's embrace. Poseidon followed her gaze, his thoughts shifting like currents in deep, unseen places. He remembered cities that thrived by harbors, mortals who built homes where sea met earth. Was not the balance of land and water itself a vow, ancient and enduring? Athena's tone softened, though her strength did not falter, wisdom lacing every word. Oaths are not prisons, but promises. They remind gods that their power is not alone. They are bridges, uncle, binding us to mortals, to each other, to what endures. Poseidon's breath deepened, heavy, like the pull of tides drawn by the distant moon. His pride battled with her words, yet truth seeped through, steady as dripping water. "You would have me surrender the wild within," he said, though doubt touched his voice. Athena shook her head, her hair gleaming like bronze in the muted light of dusk. "No, I would have you guide it, so the wild does not devour those who trust in you." Silence stretched, broken only by the cries of gulls wheeling above the bay's mouth. Poseidon lowered his trident, his eyes drawn once more to the horizon's unbroken line. Could a god remain free, yet bound by choice, a paradox like sea and shore entwined? Athena stepped back, her work done, leaving her words to weigh heavier than her presence. "Decide in your time," she said, her tone final, her figure turning to depart. "The oath will not make you less, uncle. It will make you more to those who believe." With that, she vanished into the fading light, leaving only the wisdom she carried. Poseidon stood alone once more, yet his solitude felt different, tempered by thought. The bay shimmered under twilight, its waters calm, its depths whispering quiet truths. Perhaps, he thought, the wisdom of mortals and gods alike was but another tide. And like all tides, it could not be denied, only met, only answered in kind. Night fell again, draping the sea in silver light, while Poseidon lingered by the water's edge. The stars above mirrored the scattered lights of mortal villages glowing faintly along the shore. He watched them, small fires flickering against the dark, fragile yet determined to endure. Each flame told a story of families, prayers, and lives intertwined with the ocean's breath. Poseidon's thoughts grew heavy, the weight of choice pressing as steady as the pull of tides. He had heard the words of Hermes, Athena, Amphitrite, each voice weaving its own truth. Now he sought no counsel but the sea itself, the eternal companion of his immortal soul. He stepped into the surf, letting the waves embrace him, cool and whispering secrets untold. The current carried him deeper, yet he did not resist, moving as though drawn by memory. In the stillness beneath, he felt the pulse of the deep, ancient and infinite, his domain. The sea spoke without voice, its rhythm steady, its presence vast, older than any god. It asked no questions, it demanded no chains, yet it reminded him of all who depended. Fishermen rising before dawn, sailors braving storms, children gazing at horizons in hope. Their lives ebbed and flowed with the tide, fragile, yet bound to the sea's unyielding power. Poseidon surfaced, the moon's glow washing over him like a promise he could not ignore. On the shore stood a child, no older than 10, clutching a small net, eyes wide in awe. The boy had not seen a god, only a tall figure rising from the sea, shimmering with spray. Poseidon froze, unsure, for rarely did he meet mortals without storm or offering between. The child stepped closer, trembling, yet his voice rang clear, soft as a prayer. "Lord of the sea," he whispered, "thank you for calming the waves. My father returned today." The words struck deeper than lightning, for they carried no fear, only gratitude pure. Poseidon's heart stirred, a tide within him shifting, unsettled by the boy's simple faith. "You believe I care for you?" he asked, though his tone was softer than thunder's roll. The boy nodded, eyes shining, his small hands clutching the net as if it were treasure. "My father says the sea is fierce, but it is also kind. He says you remember us." Poseidon swallowed silence, for in that moment of the wild sea within him bent to truth. He had been wrath, storm, chaos, yet also salvation, a hand guiding ships to shore. This child did not see chains or fear, only a god whose power could also protect. Perhaps that was the oath's meaning, not loss, but remembrance of the bond with mortals. The boy bowed, simple and sincere, then ran back toward the glow of his village fire. Poseidon remained, the night wind wrapping him, the stars above bearing silent witness. He turned back to the sea, his trident gleaming, his thoughts no longer wholly clouded. The ocean swelled around him, vast, unbound, yet within its rhythm lay unspoken vows. A vow not of chains, but of choice, not of prison, but of promise to those who believed. Poseidon closed his eyes, the tide carrying him steady, whispering of the path ahead. The sea would not strip him of freedom, but remind him of what freedom was meant to serve. And beneath the endless stars, he knew the time of decision was drawing near. Dawn arrived, painting the sea with soft gold, while Poseidon stood deep in thought by the shore. The memory of the boy lingered, his words echoing louder than thunder within the god's mind. Gratitude, not fear, had shaped the child's prayer, and that truth unsettled Poseidon deeply. He had ruled through storms and silence, but perhaps rulership was not what mortals needed most. From the horizon, a chariot of fire cut across the sky, the sun god Helios on his course. The light swept the waves, scattering diamonds upon their crests, illuminating the world below. Poseidon watched, his eyes narrowing, for Helios rarely left his track to speak with kin. Yet soon the chariot slowed, and Helios's voice rang out clear as the morning sky. Brother of the sea, your silence stirs the heavens. Even the stars whisper of your unrest. Poseidon lifted his trident, the light flashing upon its points, his voice low and steady. They ask me for an oath, Helios, a vow to bind what has always been free as water. Helios's laughter was warm, bright, as if sunlight itself cracked the weight of Poseidon's storm. Even I, who ride the sky, follow the same path each day. Do you call me chained? Poseidon studied him, silent, the god of light unshaken by the depth of his storming gaze. Helios continued, his tone not mocking, but filled with certainty born of endless cycles. My course is not prison, it is purpose. I burn not for myself, but for all life below. The words glowed in Poseidon's chest, uncomfortable, searing, yet they carried undeniable truth. Would you rather be flame that consumes aimlessly or flame that warms the world? Poseidon frowned, the sea behind him rising and falling, mirroring the storm within. I fear a vow will strip me, make me less than what the sea has always been. Helios's eyes blazed with steady fire, his reply as sure as the dawn itself. The sea changes each day, yet it remains the sea. So too will you remain yourself. An oath is not a chain, brother. It is light upon the water, guiding, never binding. Poseidon turned away, his gaze sweeping the endless horizon, the dawn bright upon the tide. Mortals built their lives by rhythm, the rising sun, the pull of waves, the turn of seasons. Perhaps the gods too were part of that eternal rhythm, not beyond it, but within it. The thought gnawed at him, yet it did not feel like weakness, but like recognition. Helios lifted his reins, his horses restless, eager to continue their celestial course. Think well, Lord of the Sea, Helios said. A god's freedom is vast, but his memory greater. With a final blaze of light, the chariot surged forward, carrying the sun across the sky. Poseidon remained on the shore, the waves breaking soft, yet heavy with unspoken meaning. The sea reflected gold, each crest shimmering like a promise waiting to be fulfilled. His heart shifted, not resolved, but stirred, as though the tide within turned toward choice. The words of gods, the laughter of mortals, the whisper of the sea, all pressed as one. Perhaps, he thought, freedom without remembrance was nothing but drift upon endless waters. And if so, then an oath was not loss, but anchor, holding him true against the storm. The sea surged, steady and vast, as Poseidon stood in silence, feeling the tide within turn. The evening tide rolled in, soft and steady, as Poseidon walked along the quiet stretch of shore. The golden light of Helios had faded, leaving behind a horizon streaked with rose and indigo. Above him, the first stars appeared, shining like ancient eyes watching the choices of gods. He moved slowly, each step sinking into sand as if weighed by the pull of unseen currents. The words of Helios echoed within him, warm but heavy, asking more than he wished to give. Purpose, not prison, the sun god had said. Yet Poseidon's heart clung to the sea's wildness. His dominion had never been steady or tamed, but restless, unpredictable, fierce as storms. Would a vow diminish that essence, or could it shape chaos into something more enduring? As he pondered, the wind carried laughter, faint yet clear, from a cluster of nearby rocks. Curious, he approached, and found Nereids dancing, their forms silver in the moonlit foam. They twirled and sang, their voices soft, weaving melodies that spoke of tides and freedom. When they noticed him, they bowed, their smiles playful, though their eyes carried deep knowing. "Lord of the Sea," one called, her hair flowing like seaweed, her tone both teasing and tender. "You walk heavy tonight. Even the waves wonder what burdens their master's heart."
The fury of the deep.
Poseidon's lips curled in a faint smile, though his gaze remained distant, caught in thought. "They press for an oath," he said, his voice deep, "to bind me with words carved in stone." The Nereids exchanged glances, their laughter fading into stillness, the sea itself listening. One stepped forward, her voice calm, rippling like water against rock. "An oath is not stone, Lord. It is water itself, flowing, shifting, yet always returning true." Poseidon studied her, uncertain, for her words mirrored the rhythm of the sea he knew. She lifted her hand, letting droplets fall from her fingers, glistening like stars in the night. Water moves freely, yet it remembers the shore, the rivers, the rain. That memory is vow. The others sang softly, their song weaving around Poseidon like threads of shimmering foam. They sang of sailors who prayed, of ships guided safely home, of storms that spared the innocent. Their voices rose and fell, like waves, reminding him of bonds unseen but ever present. Poseidon's chest tightened, a tide within swelling, pressing against the walls of his doubt. He thought of the boy with the net, of Helios's steady fire, of Athena's unyielding logic. All voices pointed to one truth, that freedom alone was not enough without remembrance. The Nereids circled him gently, not trapping, but holding space, their song a vessel of peace. "Your power is vast," one whispered. "But what is vast without direction, without care?" Poseidon closed his eyes, the melody sinking deep, steady as the sea's eternal rhythm. For the first time, he felt the oath not as a chain, but as a tide returning to its source. The sea would not lose him to it, nor would he lose the sea. Together, they would endure. When he opened his eyes, the Nereids were gone, their laughter fading into the night air. Only the moon remained, high above, its silver path shimmering across the darkened water. Poseidon lifted his trident, its prongs catching the light, a symbol of both power and promise. The tide surged at his feet, cool and insistent, urging him toward a choice long delayed. He stood tall, the night vast around him, the stars bright as witnesses, the sea alive with breath. And within him, the storm grew quiet, replaced by a rhythm steady, ancient, and unbroken. For he began to see that the binding oath was not the end of freedom, but the beginning of truth. The night deepened, and the sea stretched wide beneath the stars as Poseidon lingered in quiet thought. The Nereid song still echoed within him, soft yet steady, like waves that never ceased their return. He felt the tide inside him shift, not toward storm, but toward clarity he had long resisted. Above, the constellations shimmered, timeless witnesses to the choices of both gods and men. As he gazed upward, a soft light flickered, descending from the heavens with graceful motion. It was Iris, the messenger of rainbows, her presence gentle, her voice carrying peace and truth. She landed upon the shore, her feet barely touching sand, her eyes bright as morning rain. "Lord of the sea," she said, "Olympus waits, yet the skies whisper of your hesitation. Poseidon met her gaze, his trident steady in hand, his voice deep, echoing like distant thunder. They call for an oath, Iris, one that binds the sea, yet the sea was never made to bind.
Advance.
Iris smiled, her tone calm, as if she carried the wisdom of storms and the peace after them. An oath need not be a chain, but a bridge, she said, her words falling like droplets of rain. Mortals look to you not for storms alone, but for guidance, for remembrance of your watch. Poseidon's brow furrowed, the weight of memory pressing, for he had seen centuries of mortals pass. Their lives flickered brief as sparks, yet their prayers lingered, threads that wove into eternity. I have heard their voices, he said slowly, yet I fear my power will falter if I yield. Iris stepped closer, her hand brushing the air, a rainbow shimmer rising between them. Does the rainbow lose power for bending its light across the sky? Or does it shine greater? Her words struck him deep, for they mirrored the sea's own truth, bending yet never breaking. The tide roared behind him, as though urging him to listen, to release fear into the waves. Poseidon closed his eyes, remembering the boy with the net, the gratitude in his voice. He remembered Helios's steady fire, Athena's logic, Amphitrite's plea, and the Nereid's song. All voices wove together, no longer scattered, but forming a tide that pressed toward truth. The oath was not an end, but a remembrance, a vow to protect without losing the sea's soul. When he opened his eyes, Iris was still, her gaze patient, her presence gentle yet unwavering. "What must be done?" he asked, though his tone no longer carried storm, but calm resolve. Iris bowed slightly, her smile soft, her rainbow glow reflecting upon the darkened sea. "When the council gathers, speak your vow," she said. "Let it be your choice, not their demand."
Behold the fury
Poseidon's
of the
grip on
deep.
his trident tightened, but not in anger,
Your call.
rather in readiness to
Heavens
declare.
acknowledge your might.
The sea surged at his feet, each wave like a drumbeat, steady, urging him to stand tall. He turned from the shore, his path clear now, his stride heavy but filled with new certainty. Olympus awaited, its halls bright with fire, its gods restless for the word of the sea. Yet within him, the storm was quiet, replaced by rhythm older than Olympus, older than crowns. For Poseidon had seen the truth. Freedom without remembrance was drift, but vow was anchor. He would go not as a prisoner, but as a lord of tides, carrying both freedom and promise. The night gave way to dawn, the horizon glowing gold, as Poseidon rose from the sea. His decision, once feared, now felt steady, as eternal as the waves that kissed the shore. And in his heart, the oath had already begun to take form, waiting only to be spoken. The halls of Olympus gleamed with firelight, their marble pillars echoing the voices of immortals. Gods gathered in council, their gazes fixed upon Poseidon as he entered, trident in hand. He walked with measured steps, the weight of the sea behind him, yet his eyes steady. Zeus sat upon his throne, lightning in his gaze, his voice commanding the air itself. "Brother," Zeus said, "the council waits. Will you swear the oath or defy the will of Olympus?" The room fell silent, each god watching, the tension heavy as a storm before the rain. Athena's eyes gleamed with reason. Hermes leaned forward with curiosity. Apollo hummed softly. Even Hera's gaze, stern and piercing, lingered, waiting for Poseidon's choice to unfold. Poseidon raised his trident, its prongs catching the firelight, shimmering with ocean's reflection. "I have wrestled with the sea, within me," he began, his voice deep as thunder on horizon. "I feared an oath would strip me, that freedom would drown beneath chains, not of my making. But I have listened. To gods, to mortals, to the sea itself, which speaks without words. The sea does not bind, yet it remembers. It is vast, but it carries all who trust its tides. And so I will vow, not to be less than myself, but to be true to what I am. Gasps echoed through the chamber, for his words carried both defiance and devotion alike. I swear, Poseidon declared, to guard the balance of sea and shore, to hear the prayers of mortals. I swear to wield the tide not only in wrath, but in remembrance, as guardian and guide. His voice rolled like waves, filling the hall until even the marbles seemed to tremble. The silence that followed was long, yet it was not empty, but heavy with recognition. Zeus leaned forward, his gaze sharp, then softened, a rare smile breaking the storm within. So be it, Zeus said. The oath is spoken, not chain, but bond, carried by your own will. The gods murmured, some in approval, some in doubt, yet none could deny the weight of vow. Hera inclined her head, Apollo's lyre strummed lightly, and Athena's lips curved with knowing. For they saw that Poseidon's freedom remained, yet it now bore anchor, rooted in memory. The council dispersed, their voices fading, leaving the sea god alone within the vast hall. He stood tall, his trident firm, his heart no longer restless, but steady as the tide. When he left Olympus, the sky greeted him with open blue, the world below alive with sound.
Advance.
He descended to the shore, waves rushing to meet him as if to welcome their master anew. The sea rose high, foam sparkling, its vastness humming with the vow now bound in truth. Fishermen at sea felt the waters calm, their nets filling with life, their hearts with ease. Children played upon the sands, laughing as the waves danced lightly at their feet. And sailors looked to the horizon, their prayers answered not with fear, but with guidance. Poseidon watched it all, his heart full, knowing the oath had not taken, but had given. It gave him memory, connection, a bond with those whose lives ebbed with every tide. For the sea was no less free, no less fierce, yet now it carried purpose beyond itself. The god of the deep turned his gaze outward, the horizon endless, the stars eternal. His storm was quiet, not gone, but shaped, a rhythm in harmony with the song of the sea. And so the binding oath was fulfilled, not as prison, but as promise, carried across all waters. Poseidon remained lord of the sea, unchained yet anchored, free yet bound by choice alone. And the waves, eternal and unyielding, bore his vow forever, whispering it to every shore.